Hey everybody, it's Bob here. It's Monday at 5:35. I got started a few minutes later than I wanted to, and it's March 23rd, and a whole lot of things have happened recently, and I want to help us all get through this. I've put some information together again, over the last couple weeks related to COVID-19. We've learned a lot of changes that have happened in our environment. We've learned about government initiatives that have come into play. We've learned more about what this looks like from a lender standpoint, what funds have become available, both through the primary banks and through BDC Bank of Canada. So we're looking at all of these initiatives and want to give you a little bit more feedback related to what that looks like. So I've prepared a little presentation here for everybody. And what I would love is if anybody could just send me a couple notes on Facebook. Just let me know that you can see this. Let me know that everything is working well, and that our live is live and we are good to go. So if you guys could just let me know, send me a comment, send me a post, just let me know that this is working. Would love to see that. Okay, so we're gonna continue carrying on here. So I'm gonna share my screen with you. Made a little bit of a presentation, and what we're going to do is I'm gonna present the new facts that I am made aware of, and then I'm gonna open it up for questions again at the end. If that works for everybody, that would be fantastic. So here we go. We're going to start sharing away here. So the point of today's presentation is really to talk about how to gain access to money from lenders. So what I want to talk about is exactly that. What have the banks come up with? What sort of initiatives have they offered to us? How do we take advantage of them? How much capital do we have access to? And what should be kind of our next steps, right? We all want to know exactly what we need to do in order to take this whole situation to the next step. So let's begin. So the agenda here will be to talk about where we get the money and what it is called, what the types of funding available will be referred to, how will we qualify for it, how much should we ask for, when do we ask for it, and I'm just going to do a little bit of a recap on the government initiatives that are available to everybody, both individuals and businesses. Primarily, this is focused on business owners and what that looks like from a self-employed standpoint. But we will go through, some of the new things that have we've been made aware of. So where do we get the money and what is it called? So where and what? So the financial institutions, the primary financial institutions and the government are collaborating to ensure that there's an increase of capital available to business owners and to individuals. So anyone who's suffering hardship related to the COVID-19 situation. So again, Royal Bank, Scotiabank, CIBC, Bank of Montreal, TD, National Bank Desjardins, those are the primary lenders, especially related to individuals. So they have been essentially granted additional access to capital inside the Bank of Canada so that they can continue to support individuals and businesses through this situation. BDC, again, it was announced last week that they got access to $10 billion in new capital, primarily to support small and medium-sized business. And I'll talk about that a little bit as well. And if you're a farm related business, Farm Credit Canada has been given access to new capital as well to help the farming community. So that is where the money is. And now we want to know what types of money are available to us. So as a business owner, term loans and mortgages. So this is where a bank will loan you money secured against an asset, right? So a term loan essentially would be a repayable debt over a short to mid period of time. So, 5 to 7 years, maybe up to 10 years. And, we would get access to that as a business owner, and it would be secured against tangible security. So whether it would be a building, vehicles, equipment, machinery, anything that the banks could attach security to, that would be ultimately how we gain access to those type of funds. A line of credit, just like personal, a line of credit is typically an unsecured, but could be secured by, a general security agreement in business is what the commercial banking calls it. General security agreement means that they just take all of the assets that are inside your business, and because they can't attach to one specific item, they would say, we're just taking a blanket security over the assets in your business. And we would give you access to working capital and cash that's not secured against any specific asset. Those are really great because they're flexible. You can pay them down. You can increase them up to the limit that the banks have allowed for you. So that is definitely something that is available. And the last one for businesses is looking at postponement. So maybe postponements aren't so much that the capital is available, but that if you do have existing capital in place, then you are going to be able to request to them that you not pay them for that loan, at least the principal component of that loan, for a short period of time while we get through this. So again, the banks, and we researched every single bank. I know I provided details earlier today in the group, but the banks have provided details of what they're able to do. And a lot of the banks gave us specific instructions on how to access that. So I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes. So definitely, if you're a business owner and you have the ability to get a line of credit, obviously the most flexible of financing solutions. If you're a business owner who has equity inside of assets or vehicles, equipment, machinery, or you have equity in real estate, you can refinance and gain access to additional funds through a term loan or a mortgage. So something just to keep in mind there. From the personal side, we've been informed that the primary banks, again, the bulk of them, and I think every single bank has been different in the way that they have commented, but each and every one of them, again, review the details that we posted earlier today, have access to lines of credit. So if you have equity that's available to you, looking at securing that against a line of credit will give you access to personal funds. Home equity line of credit, obviously, in the real world, the largest asset that we typically have in our personal lives is our home or cottage. You may have access to home lines of credit related to the equity that's in those assets. So that should be available to you. And another one that you may want to consider is if you have non-registered investments. Pulling out non-registered investments might trigger tax on a capital gain or on dividends or on a capital gain. If you've made a lot of money on those investments, it could trigger a tax situation there. But maybe looking at that as a way to gain access to cash would be helpful. Maybe if you need it at this time. Also looking at refinancing other assets, whether it's a vehicle, whether it's a boat, other assets that you paid cash for that you may be able to essentially refinance against them, put security against them and gain access to capital would be a great opportunity there. And, I talk about those because if you're a small business owner and you have equity in your home and you need to gain access to cash to survive in your business, then a home equity line could be a short-term way to gain access to cash in a fairly efficient way at a low interest rate and use that cash towards your business. And lastly, again, postponements. All of the banks had talked about postponements related to mortgage payments for sure. Also had discussed, each and every one of them have discussed the ability to postpone payments related to credit cards as well. And which I think is super important, because credit cards are going to be one of the easiest ways to buy groceries and pay for the essentials right now if you don't have the cash available. Just keep in mind with all of this debt that we're discussing that we do have to pay this back at some point. So keep that in mind, right? We don't want to go gangbusters, pull out all the cash, spend it all, and then have no way to repay it in the future. So just keep that in mind when we're gaining access to that capital. And hopefully that explains to you a little bit about, where we can gain access to the funds and what the type of funds are called. Now, the last one I just want to talk about a little bit as a small business owner is that BDC money. And that BDC money, a lot of what has been allocated by the government as the new $10 billion has really been opened up as working capital amounts, or can be used towards using it for working capital in your business, which means, again, you don't have to have the assets in your business to secure it. But what BDC does want to see is that you can, in the future, repay this loan. So you have to have substantiating evidence that would show you that your business is succeeding right now. So keep that in mind. And I'm going to talk a little bit more in a few seconds about how you apply and what information you have to have. But those funds, any of the new funds that you're going to access that would be related to working capital and related to term loans, maybe it's buying new equipment, we have to substantiate how the company and how we can repay those debts in order for the bank to fund those amounts for us. So here's how we qualify. So the very first thing is, if we're looking for new money, right? If we're looking for a new term loan, potentially for a new line of credit in our business, we're going to have financial statements from our business up to date, and they're going to have to look like we can repay these debts. We could also have projections, although they probably won't be required at this time. But what they will want to know is what your plan is and what the future looks like for your business, so that you can substantiate repaying those. And then what you'll need is your 2017 and 2018 personal tax return and notice of assessment from the government. If you're working with us and you need access to any of those items, obviously we will help you, especially if we've done financial statements, personal tax returns from the last couple of years. They've been filed and you need your notice of assessment to take that to the bank. We, of course, will continue to assist you and provide you with those. Not a problem at all. Cash flow projections do take a little bit more time. We obviously don't do those unless you need them. But if it's a way that we can help substantiate why you should gain access to new funds, then of course we can help deliver that for you. And again, when we're displaying our business or we're presenting our business to the financial lenders, we need to make sure that we're demonstrating that our business will be financially successful. So there's a few things that are happening here. The first is, if we want new money, we need to demonstrate financial success. However, if we're looking for existing money or postponement related to money that's already outstanding, what we want to do is demonstrate how COVID-19 has had a financial hardship on us. And at that point, when we can demonstrate that financial hardship, then we can request for postponements on our existing financing. Okay. And what I will tell you is, immediately after the government announced this last week, I personally went in and applied for both personal and for business. Within a few days, once they started to understand how this process was going to work, I did get approval for my business for postponement for 3 months, and to be revisited, over the next few months to see if extended periods are going to be required. And I also have funding related to BDC, and BDC had come back and postponed payments for the same period. And actually, they might have even extended up to 6 months. So just know that those are available, and that, the sooner the better related to this. The sooner you get in, the sooner they're going to be able to respond to you. Keeping in mind that, our financial friends at the banks, at BDC, Our lenders, are going to be overwhelmed with requests related to this. So keep that in mind, when we're looking to call them. We don't want to be calling them last minute. We want to be calling them proactively to get this in place. And share with them your plan. Truthfully, if you're looking for money and, if it's new money that you want access to, if it's with BDC, share with them the success of your business, share with them your plan, and explain to them why you need access to this working capital. So for example, with me, I said, well, we're not really sure what's going to happen as far as delivery. So what we need is access to working capital to continue to ensure that we can cover our fixed expenses in our business, so that when COVID-19 has ended, that we've paid for our fixed expenses, hopefully made money along the way, but that we can repay that after, demonstrating with them what the future looks like in our business, right? Once we get back to business, we're going to be able to repay this loan without any concern. Fortunately for us, and I know we're a little bit different, taxes are a necessity, and making sure that your financial statements are up to date is certainly something that is required when you're going to access new money. But, I know a lot of you aren't in the same situation where your business is going to be continuing and the doors are open right now. So gaining access to this cash is very important. And I would certainly urge you to do that sooner than later. One question is, well, how much should we ask for? Bob, if you're telling us we should go out and ask for money, how much should we actually be asking for? And the answer is as much as you possibly can. In my opinion, we should be looking for as much as we possibly can. Right now, the interest rates are low. So if, we're going through a few months where our business is not able to generate revenue, and the one thing that will keep us going and help us survive through this is access to cash. Obviously, if we get access to cash, it doesn't mean we have to spend it all, right? It just means that we want to have access to cash so that if we need it for emergencies or to continue to make sure our doors stay open when we are able to return, get access to that cash so that we spend the money we need, not that we want, but that we need, so that we can continue once this all comes to an end. So with term loans, term loans again are typically secured by assets. I would suggest that if you're asking for financing related to an existing asset like a mortgage, I would max out the funds that you want to pull out of those assets, because I think it's very important to gain access to this capital. We don't want to go back, right? We don't want to go back and ask for more. Line of credit, again, lines of credit for new funds are essentially, we need to demonstrate that we can repay this, or that we have access, that we should have access to this line of credit. In our business, I think the banks have lessened on their restrictions right now, but typically what they want to see is inventory or accounts receivable, some substantiating reason why we need a line of credit. Again, with the new regulations in COVID-19, the banks have been provided a little bit more leniency and access to those funds, so we can continue to push for those. And again, I would suggest that you ask for the most that you can possibly get. With a line of credit, it's certainly flexible. If you don't use any of it, no problem at all. You just don't use it, and it's just a big safety net for you. And that's essentially what we want to do, guys, is we want to create a safety net for our business and for our personal lives, so that should this extend, longer than we're expecting and longer than, people are anticipating, that we have access to the capital we need to get through this time. We also want to be looking at postponement. Again, I talked about 3 months or 6 month postponement opportunities with business loans, with credit cards, with personal mortgages. Obviously, I would be asking for, the longest possible. I wouldn't go in there asking for 1 month. I would go in there and ask for 3 months. And it sounds like they're going to continue to monitor the situation, so that if we get to the 3 month period, they're probably going to continue to open it up for future as well. Again, the interest rates are low. Bank of Canada has reduced their rate down to 0.75 to give primary banks the incentive to loan us money right now. So the interest rates will continue to drop. So the cost related to setting up this financing isn't going to be substantial related to the value of having that access to cash right now. You definitely need to justify the value that you're requesting and that you have the ability to repay it. Again, this is for new money that's available, not extending credit lines and not extending, maybe term loans that are already in existence. The banks have indicated that they have increased flexibility to do that right now. This is primarily related to going in and requesting new money. And I'm thinking specifically of BDC. BDC's got an online application, which we've posted in our Vision to Results group, that you can apply online for up to $100,000. There are some criteria that need to be met. Your business has to have been in operation for the last 2 years, and you have to be able to substantiate that in the future, your business will be able to repay this loan. I believe right now in discussions with BDC, those loans are being repaid over a period of 5 years and at a 3.5% interest rate. And, BDC is a very important partner with us and with many of our clients as a financial lender. I can tell you that 3.5% is probably the lowest rate we'll ever see BDC issue. And that's just because, they're going in there with no security against this type of asset. A 3.5% interest rate is extremely low. So again, if you're in need of capital and you qualify for your business being able to repay and you qualify for the history of your business, I would definitely apply online in the link that we've provided and start the process towards gaining access to that capital. And just keeping in mind, guys, right now, if we're thinking, is it time? Should I be asking for it now? Should I be asking for it later? Keep in mind that 82% of businesses that fail do so because they run out of money, right? They run out of cash. And last Thursday, we had a session on how to maximize cash flow. One of the resources that was in there was talking about financing, which is where we're getting a little bit deeper tonight. But if you're looking at maximizing your cash resources, go back and watch the Thursday video. Definitely, financing, we're going to continue to get a little bit more involved here as well. So here's the easiest question that I think we can all ask ourselves is, and I'm getting asked that question right now by many of our clients and from our community, is when should we be asking for this money? And there's one simple answer. The time to ask for that money is now. If you consider, so I'll give you, for example, I suggested the same thing with everybody last week related to layoffs, right? If we're looking at having to temporarily lay off our team because we have no revenue coming in, when is the time to do that? The time is right now to do that for a couple of reasons. One, we need to act quickly to maintain and save the cash resources in our business so that those employees have something to come back to, right? If we don't survive, they can't come back to a job, right? And I hate to get scary there, but seriously, 82% of businesses that fail do so because they run out of cash, right? The same situation, and sorry, back to the employees. So the employees, the other reason I'm saying act quickly is that we got statistics from Service Canada, who administers the EI applications. A typical week for EI applications is 70,000. They had up to 1 million people apply on EI, which has been unheard of. So what's going to happen is they've got the staffing and resources there available to apply and manage 70,000 applications a week. And I know that the government's going to add more resources here and bring more people in. But the reality is, if we're having millions and millions of people apply for EI, then it's going to be more difficult and more delayed for our employees and for ourselves to get access to those EI funds. So the same goes for the banking, right? We're thinking of our banking partners, the primary banks, Royal Bank, Scotia, TD, Bank of Montreal. We're thinking of those guys and CIBC, and we're thinking of them. They're not bringing in additional account managers at this time to administer these loans, right? These guys are working around the clock to help us get through this, and we appreciate them more than ever. And we're very grateful for our community partners at this time and our banking friends. Thank you so much for all the time and effort that you guys are putting in. But here's the thing. the more people that continue to apply for access to this capital, the longer the process is going to be for us to get approved for those applications. And it's not that they're not trying their best to get these done. It's just a matter of fact that, it's just going to, there's only so many resources that are available to help process this. And again, businesses on new loans are going to have to qualify for this money. It's not that they're just making it available to everybody, because these banks are public companies as well, right? They have to mitigate their risk exposure in order to lend money. So if we're going to apply, we should do it right now. If we want to repay it in 3 months because we didn't need it, okay, make sure that when you're arranging your financing, that it's left open, it's not at a fixed rate. If we leave it open, we can repay it without penalties. Typically, obviously review that with your CPA and with your advisors, but make sure that it's open. If it's a line of credit, if it's a working capital, you can repay that without penalties. And again, the risk that you have right now is lower interest rates. And the benefit of having access to that now is, one, you can probably still get in early enough that you'll receive funds fairly quickly. And two, you'll have access to capital to make sure that we continue to operate and have doors that can open when this is all over. Okay, we're going to do a quick recap here of the government initiatives that are available to us. We've got a little bit more definition on how some of these will apply than I had last Thursday. So I'm going to just walk through these again, and I think these are all very important for everybody. The one thing that is still available from last week is the wage subsidy. So again, guys, this is a 10% wage subsidy on our payroll up to a max of $25,000 over a 3-month period. So the effective date of that is March 18th. So any payroll that you're paying from March 18th forward for your employees who are being maintained on staff, 10% of that is going to be received as a subsidy. Now we've received more direction on how that works. So the way that it works is when we go to remit our March payroll, which would be due on April 15th as a source deduction payment, what happens is we reduce our 10% of payroll costs by the amount of the payment that we remit to the government. Okay, so it is very important that we calculate that and we reduce the cash outflow related to those funds. All right. That is how that works. Again, $25,000 per employer and a maximum of $1,375 per employee over this 3-month period. And again, I fully anticipate that we'll continue to receive more and more access to this type of incentive in the small business community. But what I will tell you, and I said this last Thursday, this 10% subsidy is not a reason to keep people on payroll if you have no money coming in, because this 10% incentive is just being reduced from what you have to remit to the government. You're not getting a check. You're not getting access to cash coming in to help support your business and to keep the doors open or to keep you in line to reopen when this is over. This is purely a subsidy as an incentive for those that are able to continue working to keep their employees employed. All right. So one of the best things to do would be make sure that if you are in an employer who has lost access to income, just make sure that, again, you push through the process. If you need to lay people off, lay them off sooner than later. File your record of employment online and make sure there's no comments or no notes on the record of employment. It's shortage of work. No comments, because any comments or notes on the record of employment will delay the processing of the employment insurance for your employees. Okay. So just a quick tip there to make sure that we make this as efficient as possible for our employees and their families to gain access to those funds. Again, we talked about the 10%, or sorry, the $10 billion in BDC funding available. It can be a term loan. It can be secured against assets, but the bulk of it has been opened up as working capital, so you don't require any assets to be secured against, but you do have to substantiate, one, that your business has been successful in the past, which is financial statements, and you do have to show them how there's a pattern of success in your business and that you will be able to repay that debt. Very important there. Personal loans and business loans. Again, each of the banks, we posted some resources today. including links to the bank's websites, up to 6 months for personal, up to 3 months for business on postponement of payments. Again, the government worked with the primary banks to give them access to the capital to do that. The Bank of Canada reduced its rate to 0.75%, which means borrowing rates are going to continue to get better for us as individuals and as businesses. So if we can gain access to that capital, we should do it because the cost is so low, but the cost of not having access to that capital is very great. Just keep that in mind as well. There's been a 6-month interest-free announcement on student loans. So any student loan payments over the next 6 months will not be, there will be no interest on it. And I believe it, it depends on the loan, but I think it's interest plus small principal payments. So hopefully anyone who's got student debt, that monthly payment has been significantly eliminated. There has been an announcement, and I think there was last week as well, EI for self-employed people. They've now referred to this as the emergency care benefit. So if you're going online, again, we posted a resource today where you can apply online. But essentially, this resource allows us as self-employed people to go in and say, we had to shut our doors. We can gain access to the EI for self-employed under the emergency care benefit for up to $450 weekly for 15 weeks. So this should give us some cash flow into our home to help pay for groceries and other essential expenses. It's not going to break the bank, but having access to these funds might help us be able to continue to, reduce the cash outflow so that maybe, we can use it for other means, but also will, if we need that extra cash injection, will be able to help us get through this. It's not, listen, guys, the government incentives here aren't going to save everything for us. We have to do our own part to make sure we're lining things up, because the subsidies and the incentives for self-employed people are not enough to get us through this. We need to make hard decisions. We may need to make them quickly, and we need to gain access to capital and resources so that we can afford to get through this. Interesting note on personal taxes. So personal tax filing deadline has been moved back from April 30th to May 31st. Keep in mind though, if you are an individual who files a personal tax return and you receive GST checks or you receive the child tax benefit, just know that those amounts are going to be increased as well, which is a great initiative, which I have there on number 10. However, if we don't file our tax return, we use the tax return, the 2019 personal tax return, to qualify for those. So what our income is in 2019 qualifies us for the payments, I believe, starting in July. So make sure that you're still filing your personal taxes. And if you want us to do that, we'll be happy to do that for you. But make sure that if you're looking for those incentives, make sure you get your taxes filed early, even though there's an extension. Deferral of any personal taxes owing. Yes. So anybody who would file their taxes for April 30th, typically, again, it's May 31st. Every year on April 30th, if you have a balance owing, whether you're self-employed or not, it is due April 30th. They have extended that out to August 31st at this point, which is a great deferral. I would not recommend anybody make tax payments at this point. If you don't need to, hold on to that cash. And just know that when August 31st comes around, you're going to have to make those payments. Again, if you get your taxes done early, we can figure out how much you're going to owe so you can plan for it early and have those funds available August 31st when they become due. The same goes for any business taxes. Any amount that became due after March 18th, 2020 has been extended, which would mean, corporate tax installments or any payments related to corporate taxes owing after March 18th, 2020 have been extended. So we don't have to pay any corporate taxes until August 31st as well. I talked about the child tax benefits. I talked about the income tax deadline being changed to May 31st. And one other note I will continue to remind people of is that the government is trying to act quickly. I feel like they're doing a good job acting quickly. I'm not sure that the resources they're making available to small business are as beneficial as they're making it out to be, because we're really not gaining access to capital unless we qualify for new funds that are available. I definitely feel like the postponement for bank payments is very important. Again, everybody act now on that. Get your request in. A lot of the bank managers who were bringing up, the process to me said reach out to them, sooner than later to get that process started. But additional programs will continue to be announced from the government. And as they continue to be announced, we will continue to post this information inside our Facebook group so that you have the resources you need to make the right decisions. Here are a few resources that we know are not available at this point. So, and we've got asked this question a lot, especially with people who are on, the September 30th, December 31st, March 31st, June 30th quarter related to HST filing. At this point, there is 0 HST filing extension. So if your quarter ends March 31st, your HST is due April 30th. Both the balance and the filing are still due on that date. And the reason that this is, if we think back about it, is that we collect the HST, which is really the government's money. It was never our money to begin with. They're not going to postpone the payment of that, or at least they haven't as of yet. People like me and other professionals are advocating very strongly that it would be beneficial for small business to hold on to these funds. But even though we might not want to give up those funds, make sure we file. There's no penalties if you file on time. There's only interest on balances owing if you don't pay them. So at a minimum, if you don't want to give up your HST funds, they are going to charge you interest. Right now it's at 6%. I'm guessing that interest rate will drop. But if you file your HST on March 31st and you don't pay it, we also know that there's no collections calls that are going to be happening over the next 4 to 6 weeks as well. So you've got a little bit of time with that. Make sure you file. It's absolutely essential that you file that return. We also know that there is no elimination of the source deduction payment as well. So every month that we have employees on payroll, we collect CPP, EI, and income tax withholdings from them. That is due the 15th of the month after, unless you have a big payroll and then it's due twice a month. But typically a business pays on the 15th of the month. There is no deferral in that, and we're still expected to make those payments on the 15th of the month. It may be reduced by the 10% wage subsidy, but we are still required to make those payments at the end of the month. I want to open it up at this time and see if there's any questions that are going on as I try and head over to the Facebook Live that's here, and see if you guys have any questions. Maybe if there's any questions, what I can do is I can continue to answer them after we get off this live session. But I wanted to make sure that I shared the principles and the fundamentals with you of how to gain access to cash now, so that you can make sure that you're prepared and your safety net is big enough to get us through this hurdle of the next few weeks, few months, whatever that looks like. Okay, guys, I am going to sign off here. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you guys and with serving our community. Just know that I will be here day in and day out, continuing to provide valuable resources for you. Continue to monitor our group. Every time I get access to resources, I will make sure that I continue to share them. I also am working very closely with a lot of very influential community partners, including our financial institutions. So as soon as they get access to new resources, or if any of our government agents provide us with inside information as to something that will be coming along our way, we'll make sure to share that and continue to serve you guys in the best way we possibly can. Just remember, guys, it's going to be possibly a long road, but if we plan properly by gaining access to an increased safety net, we go back, review the session from last Thursday. Obviously, there was a lot of information there related to how we improve our cash flow. This was talking about how we improve our cash flow related to lenders. Make sure you go back and watch that. There's lots of tools in there. And just know, guys, I've got your back, and we're going to continue to work through this, and we're going to get through this together. Stay safe. Make sure you continue to proactively plan. Ask for money now. Ask for postponements now. and we will be talking with you guys again real soon. Thanks a lot, everyone.